Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and start with our sectioning, starting with the horseshoe section, splitting that into two, and then moving on to the sides. We're going to go ahead and separate the sides away from the back. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get started and start cutting off some hair. So when we get onto this top sectioning, I'll talk more about that horseshoe section when we get to it. So we're going to go ahead and start on the sides. We're going to go ahead and work with vertical sections, in other words up and down, working with a 90-degree angle, pulling the hair straight out from the head. We're going to go in with a back cutting technique, closing the scissors on the way in and opening the scissors on the way out, working all the way down. What this is going to do, working at a 90 and utilizing a back cutting technique, is we're going to remove weight and maintain length at the same time, creating a soft perimeter. Bam, that's always a good feeling right in the beginning. So we're going to go ahead and move on to this next section. Again, working with vertical sections, pointed out to a 90. We're going to grab our visual guide right here, and that's where we're going to start this layering technique on this next section, working all the way down. It's very important to master this back cutting technique to ensure that you're not shredding the hair. You want it to still create a nice soft layer. So I suggest to just practice on a random piece of hair and really get the motions down. Keep checking that visual guide to keep the hair nice and balanced, and work all the way down through the length. Look at that, super soft, it's not shredded. Utilizing these back cutting techniques, my clients love it. They always say, wow, I've never seen hair be cut like this, and they just really love it. They say they can tell how much I'm into my work, how much I'm into this haircut, and it kind of starts to build up confidence. Really makes sense to me visually working with these techniques. So we can go in and kind of detail that perimeter out a little bit if we want. I always say don't do too much in the beginning. You can always go back in towards the end and do more. So we're not going to do too much on that. So we're going to go on to the other side and continue, still working at a 90 degree with vertical sections and utilizing the same back cutting technique, working to the ear. There we go, a little bit of detailing. So I'm going to go ahead and check for balance. Visually kind of seeing, this is where you can really use your mirror. Make sure the balance is how you want it. And we're going to be moving on to the back. As you can see, this back sectioning that I did, I really just separated the front from the back. Sectioning to me is just kind of setting up my map so I have something to follow. I can go in visually and cut this hair and just kind of follow the head shape, but this kind of keeps me on track and helps me to go in and recreate a haircut if I want, not just kind of go in visually. So starting out right above the ear, I like to start and work it all the way to the other side, splitting this section in half. And we're going to go ahead and clip this section, this middle section up super lightly, not too much, because this is the section we're actually going to go in and cut next. Get that hair out of the way. So this bottom section is what we're going to kind of put away for right now and get to it later. I like to kind of tuck this section underneath the cape when I'm cutting a client and get back to it later. But for now, on the mannequin head, we'll go ahead and just kind of clip it away. So I'm going to drop this section that we're going to be going on to next. As you can see, just split that right across. Yeah, starting out right above the ear. So on this section, we're going to continue utilizing the same technique that we did on the sides. As you can see, the section is still the same size as the sides. Yeah. So I'm just going to kind of work that all the way around to the other side. So we're going to still take this first section starting right behind the ear where we left off from the sides. Take that visual guide and continue the same back cutting technique, working all the way down at a 90-degree angle. So we're going to go ahead and work this from this side right behind the ear all the way back to the center back. The reason why I like to kind of work on this section now is I'm really establishing this guide that I'm going to use for the top and use for the underneath. Go ahead and take that vertical section, take that visual guide, and go and close the scissor on the way in and open the scissor on the way out. And continue that all the way to the center back. And then we're going to go from the left side working to the right into the center back. The reason why I like to work into the center is if I go all the way around the head, I'm more likely to kind of create over direction. So this kind of will keep my haircut well balanced. I won't kind of be pulling hairs in ways that I don't want to pull it. Don't get me wrong, you can work all the way around the head, whatever suits you, as long as you make sure you're not going to be creating any over direction. Very soft. You can see all that nice soft texture within the haircut right now. It looks scary, you guys, but once you see the end result, it will all make sense. Use this sectioning as just a map. You know to start on the sides, you know to go into the center back, and then you're going to work the bottom section underneath. So we're going to go ahead and take that section straight out, all the way down. I always like to kind of look at the edge of the hair before you drop it on the floor. Kind of look as the hair shredded. You know, make sure you're keeping the back cutting super soft. Really closing the scissor on the way out and actually cutting the hair and opening it on the way out. So we're going to go ahead and continue that from the left to the center. Same, working at with a vertical section at a 90-degree, utilizing the back cutting technique from the left to the center back. So there we go. There it is. So now let's just do a little bit of soft cross-checking. You know, just slightly point cutting in areas you want to kind of balance out a little bit. Again, if there's too much hair and you missed a piece, go back in still with the vertical section and re-back cut it. If not, take that horizontal section, pull it straight out, just kind of nip, you know, any loose hairs or anything you might have missed. Cut into the hair a little bit. And continue checking that through the back. Now visually, kind of check for balance. Make sure it's all at the length you want. It's really balanced. So now we're going to go and work on this back section. So now is where I would untuck it from the cape if it was on my client, but for this we just clipped it up, so I'll take the clips away. So now that we establish, you guys, that length and that guide, I like to say, on that center part, we're going to still take this vertical section. And now we have the guide that we established previously. So we know our starting point. We're going to work still with the 90 degrees, working with our back cutting technique, closing the scissor on the way in and opening on the way out. You're not grinding the hair or shredding the hair, you're cutting the hair. I'm going in with the CCH1 6.0 hybrid scissor, which will allow me to cut on wet and dry hair. I love working with a somewhat longer scissor when I'm cutting dry hair. It just makes sense to me. Don't get me wrong, a scissor is a preference. You gotta find out what's comfortable to you. If it works for you, perfect. So we're gonna continue that, you guys. Still working from starting on the right, working to the center and the back. So taking that guide from the previous hair we cut from the center back and working all the way down. And we're gonna work that all the way to the middle. Then we're gonna go on to the left side and continue from the left to the right. Keeping in mind it's gonna help, instead of going all the way around, it's gonna help from creating any over direction, which we don't want. Visual guide, working at a 90 degree with vertical sections. Still having that soft line that you guys saw. I'm going to start on the left side and work that to the right, to the middle. So now we're going to go ahead and cut some of this perimeter out, remembering we don't want any harsh lines, we want to keep it super soft. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of elevation and this nice soft point cutting technique. Just kind of establish a guide, don't cut too much off in the beginning. We will go back and cut more off. You'll have more room to play. It's important not to just go in at it too much. You want to have some more room to kind of play. I like to really go ahead and connect this side from the front to the back first. And bringing all the hair out to you and going with still your soft point cutting technique. Just cutting from the sides to the back. We're going to continue that on the other side. Just connecting the sides to the back. So now once we cut the sides, now I like to go in and really establish the length. I can visually kind of see it, just makes more sense to me. And now I'll go in and kind of cut some off. Don't get me wrong, you can always do this at the end as well, but I kind of like to work as I go. Whatever works for you will work for me. Just really play around and try new things. Go and do a little bit more cross checking, working with horizontal sections now. Lightly point cutting into the hair. Checking for balance. Continue that around the back of the head. So now we're going to go in and cut this top section that we took off. We utilize the CCH sectioning sticks for these two sections, and we're going to go in and lightly this down with a nice cutting lotion. We're working with a lot of hair, so again, keeping in mind we are cutting dry hair, so don't spray too much. This is just going to lightly help kind of glide the comb through the hair, get rid of some tangles from being tied up in a knot. With the sectioning stick, those sectioning sticks come in yellow gold, rose gold, black, and silver. They're great for a lot of thick sectionings, a lot of hair, creating nice clean sections. And we'll talk about that back section when we get to it. We like to kind of keep that crown area out towards the end. That's where we work with a lot of calyx. So I always like to kind of work that section last. So we're going to go ahead and take, our first section right down the middle. This is where the mirror comes in handy, you guys. Use it. Make sure you can get that nice middle section. Alright, so this middle section is super important because now you're going to establish a new guide. This is going to be your desired length that you want on the top. So keep in mind how much hair you want on the top. Again, you can always cut more off, but then you're going to have to go back through and redo the top. So kind of find your desired length that you want. And we're going to work with a 90 degree to point it all up towards the ceiling. Going in with still a nice back cutting technique, closing the scissor on the way in, opening the scissor on the way out, working straight across, pulling the hair up towards the ceiling. So now we established our length and also a guide on the top. So we have our guide on the side and on the top. So now it's just going to be, connecting the dots, I like to say. So we have something to follow. So we're going to go ahead and take our first section, pulling that up. So we have our side guide right there. We're going to go slightly above it and work all the way up to the guide we established on the center top. The reason I like to go right above the guide on the sides is I do want this haircut to be slightly disconnected. I love a little bit of disconnection on these shorter haircuts. I feel it really shows off all the texture, really shows off the cut. Nothing too well blended. So on this last section, you guys, if you can't find your section, you can always drop it and work and keep sectioning it. You can have that guide. Once you lose it, see, you can always go back in. Make sure you're in control of the hair. I'm going to slightly over direct this hair towards the back. The reason why is we want to maintain some length in the front. I always like to maintain a little bit of length in the front because then I have more hair to play with when I cut the front fringe area. We're going to go ahead and continue that onto the other side. So as you can see, here's our desired length on the top, which is a guide, and our side guide. So we're going to go ahead and play connect the dots still, you guys. So we're going to go ahead and start and take this first section, take our visual guide from the sides that we cut. Yeah, there we go. And start slightly above that guide and working with a nice back cutting, closing on the way in, opening on the way out, working up to that guide on the center top. Again, the reason why we went slightly above that section with the guide is because we want to have a slight disconnection. So we're going to go ahead and continue that up towards the front. When you have your guides to follow, you guys, and you have your dots to connect, that's where you're not going to get lost. It's really going to make sense and you have something to follow. So say you get lost in the middle of this haircut, let the hair fall, recomb it, resection it, and try to find your guide or try to find your dots that you want to connect. So keeping in mind we are over directing this hair back slightly in the front section because we want to maintain length in the front to give us more room to play on the front fringe area. As you can see, we finished the top now. So you can see even with this length, it's super nice, it's super soft. So this is where you're gonna really get to start and play. So now, I love this look already, but I wanna go ahead and give this cut a shorter feel because that's what we wanted to create. So now we're gonna go ahead and take a triangular section. starting with the point at that back crown area section that we took. And just starting a triangular section, just like if you're going to be cutting a fringe. I like to go off the side of the eyebrows. So work from that point all the way to the side of the eyebrow and section the rest of the top hair out of the way with a clip. And we'll get to that later. Again, sectioning is just getting hair out of the way. Let's go ahead and split this in half for a little bit more control. So that little triangular section on the top. We'll get to that next. So this is where you guys are going to really get to go and have some fun, be creative, find out what length do you want in the front, do you want a fringe, do you want to keep it longer. I want to go in and have some fun, so we're going to go in and cut a soft fringe with a little bit of elevation, the soft point cutting technique, wanting to keep the line super soft. Once you find your desired length, I'm going to over direct this to the opposite side because I want to create the short to long effect, going with the soft point cutting technique, keeping the line super soft, nothing too harsh. And as you can see, as that falls, it's going to go short to long. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side, just pulling it to the opposite direction and working up to that guide that we created on the fringe. Soft point cutting technique, I suggest to practice this as well. You don't want the cuts to be too small, you want to keep it super soft. Go and detail it. So now we have the desired length. You can do any detailing you might want to do. Now we're going to move on to that triangular piece on the top that we created. So now we're going to work with a pivot. So we're going to go take that center from the point to the front. And we're going to now cut from the fringe area length up to the point that we established our desired length to, pivoting off that triangular section. We're going to go and start with that guide that we created with our fringe. Yeah. We're going to connect that to our desired length on the top. We're going to continue that onto the other side as well, bringing everything straight up from the head and connecting the dots. I love when you have these dots to connect. It keeps you from getting lost. Let whatever shorter hairs there fall out and continue with that opening and closing technique. There we go. It's a good length. Again, we can go in and detail more at the end, leave hair to play with. So now let's release the rest of the hair that we put away on this top section. So now we're going to go ahead and just kind of do a slight face frame with this top section. We're going to bring all this hair forward. And we're going to now go back in utilizing, again, our back cutting technique. Kind of move this so you guys can see. We're going to go ahead and pull the hair straight out towards the front and use our back cutting technique. Closing the scissors on the way in, opening the scissors on the way out. And you can see that creating a nice short to long face frame. Go in and detail a little bit. We're going to go ahead and continue that on the other side. There we go. Kind of check for the balance. It's starting to come together. Yeah. Looks good to me. So now we're going to move on to the back. Yeah, it looks super nice. Look at that texture already. So there we go. Let's drop that last crown. So now you can see that last section was towards the top and the crown. Let's mist it down a little bit more. It's been tied up. Get rid of some of the kinks. Keeping in mind we are cutting dry hair, so don't mist it down too much. It's going to help. The cutting lotion is going to help guide the hair or the comb through the hair because we are working with a lot of hair. So we're going to go ahead and take our first section, straight down the middle of this section. Yeah. So now we're going to still play connect the dots, you guys. We have this guide that we established, and we have our guide in the back that we established. I'm going to cut the back. So I'm going to go slightly above, holding the hair straight up. I'm going to go slightly above that section in the back and connect it up into the top. And we are going short to long, so we're building a little bit of graduation here. Connecting that dot to the dot. There we go. And we're going to kind of continue that into this next section. Put it all straight up. We have that guide from our previous cut. And we're going to go ahead and go slightly above it and work. Opening the scissor on the way out, closing on the way in, working up to that guide we established on the center top. Again, on the beginning of this, we are going slightly above that back section guide because we do want a slight disconnection. I'm going to go ahead and spray it down a little bit more, still keeping the hair dry, just to help get some of those tangles out of the hair. I'm going to go ahead and work this, you guys. Follow the roundness of the head, work around the head, straight up. Take that guide, see, and go slightly above that guide and work all the way up into that guide we established on top of the head, which was our desired length for the top. So look at all that movement. It's starting to come together, see? So with us sectioning, you're really going to be able to go and if you create these sections, you can use whatever technique, blunt cut, point cut, back cut, slide cut, and cut the lines however you want. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of continue that, Make sure you follow that guide, go slightly above it. We're wanting to create some disconnection. Working all the way up to that guide we established on the top. So look at the back. There's our guide on the top. There's our guide in the back. And I'm going slightly above that, working up this section to that point. Look at that nice texture, you guys. You can already see it. You can see the slight disconnection we've created. So we have this last section. I'm gonna follow it and take that guide and go slightly above it. Again, closing the scissors on the way out, opening them on the way, or open them on the way out, closing them on the way in. There's that. Look at that. Alright, so now we're going to kind of go in and mist this down a little bit more, lightly with a nice cutting lotion. And now we're going to go and do a little bit of cross-checking. Looks good. Only cut if you need to, you guys. And go in slightly again if you are going to go in with a nice soft point cutting technique, not cutting too much of the hair, just cutting to it slightly. Just kind of work around the head and continue with that cross check. Alright, let's do a little rough dry, get some of that loose hair out of there, play around with the shape, feel it. It's looking good so far. So let's go ahead and do a little cross-checking on this top section, bringing everything straight out towards the ceiling. making sure the balance is good for you. There's nothing that's too off, that's noticeably off. If it is, you'll want to go back in and redo this top section. So that looks good. I'm going to go in and do a little bit of detailing. You know, this is where you guys can really have some fun. Detail this front area, try different things. I look to go in and create, as you can see, some nice separation. Show off that texture a little bit. So when I was going into this, I noticed it was covering the eyes. So I wanted to really go in and open those eyes up. So that's kind of when I went in at this. I wanted to really open those up. So I kind of just go in right above the eyes and cut that hair out. And you can see how it gave it a whole different feel. Same on this section. Just going right above the eyes and cutting that out. Leaving the center a little bit longer because I want some room to kind of still be able to push it over to the side if I want. As you can see. Yeah. Go and do a little bit more detail cutting. Really just creating some separation. This is probably my favorite part of the haircut, going in and really customizing it. You can also go in and play around with the perimeter as well if you want to cut more off, if you didn't do it in the beginning or during the haircut, or if you decide you want to bring up the length around the perimeter a little bit more. You can always go in and do that. I'm liking this length. I really just kind of wanted to detail the front area. So now we're going to go in and do some styling. I'm going to go in with some texture powder. It's by Sons by Courtney Cook Hair. I love going in with the texture powder because it's going to really show off the texture. Has a light hold. It's going to help me get some more separation. When it comes to layering and creating texture in the hair, I really like to talk to clients on you have to dress it. You have to utilize product to really show it off. It's super important to educate your clients on that to achieve these textured looks. They're going to have to use a texture powder, light hairspray, texture spray. Won't take much just to really create some separation. Yeah, I like to put a little texture powder in. You can always go in and do a little bit more detailing or detail cutting if you need to. Once there's some powder in there, I like to kind of play with the style before I continue to cut. So let's go ahead and finish this off with a little bit of styling cream, also by Sons by Courtney Cook Hair. As you can see, I didn't take too much. Working it in my palms and then going in with my fingertips. Really just separating the hair, piecing it out, watching it all come together. Have fun with the styling. You can do so many different things with this.
What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. This makes sense to you. I'm a visual haircutter, and I think the most important thing I can do when I'm teaching someone is that I like to say I can teach you technique, I can teach you a haircut. But you have to find what style makes sense to you. I'm a visual cutter, it makes sense. You need to use this downtime to just try new things, explore, grab a doll head, and just cut hair. When it makes sense to you and you can create something, whatever is in your head or whatever your vision is, if you can create it, it's not the wrong way. This, I think, is beautiful. And this is what I would use behind the chair, these techniques, and I think my techniques, when I use them, they stand out. My clients love and go, wow, I've never seen someone cut hair like that. It makes sense. Find your style, have fun with it, and do that.